Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with guest David McKee, founder of Another Angle Consulting. Hello, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and today I have David McKee with me. I'm so excited. We've been trying to get together for a while now, and he is the founder of Another Angle Consulting. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm so excited to really talk about what I have a book that's coming out soon, and it's all about mindset and negative thinking and being able to rewire with neuroplasticity, going from a negative mindset or you can't do something to how you can fix that in little simple habits that we can kind of retrack and kind of help you that it can help you on a day-to-day basis just really by priming your brain.
That sounds exciting. So I love to hear the story. I know that you went from finance to mindset coach. And so tell us a little bit about you, and then let's
Sure.
hear more about your book and everything else. I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's going to be great. So yeah, I got involved in the psych type side of field. I got really involved with psychology, neuroscience, and genetics, primarily because of my dad, a Methodist minister, and did a lot of things wrong, unfortunately, and it kind of torpedoed and spiked our family. And as a result of that, I long time undiagnosed ADHD that I just found out about 3 years ago that I'm ADHD, and that it started linking up that a doctor was walking me through, and he's like, Dave, do you have issues with certain little things? And I was like, I don't know exactly what he was kind of like hinting at, but he said, are you a people pleaser? And that was the one that jumped out to me. And immediately I said no. And then it racked my brain and walked through it. And I like, as I just an internal thought within my ADHD brain, I was like, oh, I do that. And I had no idea that it was actually a thing. And so it really got me interested in how the brain works. And then I wanted to go through, I'm a big believer in when a story doesn't go the way that you want it to go, find a way to reimagine it and relive through it and see how you can change the ending. And it's really living from the ending fulfilled. And when something goes wrong and it's something that really ruminates with you and you hate that it went that way, think about it, like really like try to relive it and what would if it had gone right. And when you can really reframe it and put into that mindset, it literally helps your brain connect and kind of close some of the loops that were problems that might have been causing triggers or stress within that system of your body. And it's a way that you can really kind of find peace with what you're going through. So I was able to go through that, and when I realized what power it had for me, and I was in the creative side, I grew up learning and playing music from my mom. I really wanted to help creatives, and that led to working with creatives and in the music industry. And then I realized, man, I also have this background in finance and business. I would love to be able to help people there because I think the world has gone just to a very what's the bottom line, what's your profit and loss on the business side. And there's so many other things that can really be benefits or markers of what you're doing to improve that doesn't always show on the bottom line. So I help working with coaches and, or sorry, I help coach CEOs as well as some of their employees, especially employees lately that if they kind of were a star performer and then they hit a couple months where they're not really, they don't seem like the same employee. And a lot of times CEOs will just let that person go and not really kind of think about it and just kind of see what happened. And I let them know what's the cost of really digging in to see if there was a problem. Because, man, if you can help them figure out what that problem is, that loyalty and that brand recognition of you were there for them at their lowest really stands out. So I'm really trying to change a lot of the culture and the way that people will think in that method, especially when it comes to turnover with employees.
I love that. And they do say, though, if you have a star employee and you're saying little snippet, but it costs a lot more to get a new employee if you can actually
Hmm.
find the solution and correct it and bring your star employee back again because they're already trained in it.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I
Absolutely.
always remember in business school, learning that it costs a lot more
Hmm.
to hire a new person than it is to fire one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is you could actually quantify the cost is when they've gone through and done samples and studies on it, it's about 2.5 to 2.8 X. So 2.5 times that you're going through that cycle of a new employee. So if you have two employees leave, the average is you're going to go through five people to replace those two good employees. Think about all that time and that like training and all that you put into that. man, it's just not worth it when you can maybe coach up someone who's already there that you know has a history and a track record of performing for you, and how we can get them back on track to where they were their best.
Absolutely. It's kind of funny because I was thinking about that in my own job. I love my job. I love what I
Mm,
do.
okay.
But there are times where I feel stagnant, and I'm very acutely aware of that. And then I'm thinking, what can I do to change it up so that it becomes, bring a little bit more excitement. Let's change something. Let's not keep doing, because Groundhog Day is a real thing at work sometimes. Like it's
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
and when it becomes that, it becomes less fulfilling. And so I'm constantly thinking about, okay, what can I do? And I don't want to be that person that's just going to keep it stagnant, because then it just
Yeah.
becomes a job, and mine is not a job. Mine is fun. I enjoy it. So that's an interesting thing, because I'm aware of it, but there may be some other employees that are not, and they get stuck in that Groundhog Day, and that might be part of the reason why they're starting to drop, because they're not
Yeah.
thinking, right? So you would come in on that part
100%.
and say, hey, come on,
Yeah. For
right?
sure. And what you're pinpointing really what I think is a societal issue right now is it came out recently, and this is a bunch of studies that I'm putting together, but it's essentially you can follow the line of where it goes, is that as humans, we think about 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day internally of what you're through of, okay, I need to wake up, I need to brush my teeth, I need to do that. So like every little micro decision you make throughout the day, it's about like 70,000. And then Andrew Bustamante, who was a former CIA worker, walked through and said, of those 50 or 60 to 70,000 thoughts that you're thinking, about 75 to 80% of them are negative or neutral thoughts, that it's like you feel nothing about it or feel some type of negative reaction out of it. And that only about 10 to 20% there are positive thoughts. And it what that does, especially with the negativity, is if it keeps running and keeps circling, and think about how we live our lives, that so many people is that they're dealing with problems, they're dealing with stress on an everyday basis, but they've got the same routine that they go to sleep at the same time or around the same time, wake up at the same time. And one of the things that I've really drilled into, to like a basic thing that everyone who's listening to this, I highly suggest try this, because it's just brain science and neuroscience of how your brain works, is pretty much on average the last 10 minutes before you go to sleep, and then the first 10 minutes when you wake up, your brain is still in a partial theta state, which means you're highly suggestible. Your subconscious, it's almost like you're talking to your subconscious. And that is when you should be doing your affirmations, talking about how you want your day to be, prime your brain of, this is going to be a great day. I have so much energy. I've got this project or this presentation, and I'm going to just this is how it's going to go. So in those 10 minutes before after you go to sleep, try to actively think of how that's going to go. How do you want it to go? And like really like dig into the positives of that. And I'm telling you, what you will feel when you wake up the next morning, you're going to wake up with energy, like ready to go. Whereas like other times, if you're in that negative of what happens if it goes wrong, and start calculating. In my ADHD brain, I always go through how many different ways this could go wrong, and I calculate almost essentially where that's going. And I think a lot of us are all guilty of that. And the more I talk about it, is everyone's like, "Hey, I do that too." And I was like, I think it's become really a societal thing that we all really think in this negative loop pattern. And and then on the flip side, I gave you some ways to be positive, but how a lot of us live is that we have our problems and everything that's going on. And in those last 10 minutes and first 10 minutes, when our subconscious, as I said, suggestible as it can be when you're awake, and you're going to your phone and you're going through your problems, looking at your problems, seeing what's going to be the problem, and just saying, this is bad, this isn't going to work. And that kind of loop activates your what they call the default mode network, the DMN. And that is exactly what you're saying of kind of people just going through Groundhog Day. That is the DMN, is that many people fall into that. And when you're into that type of frame of mind and your brain is clicking, it's weird that your prefrontal cortex is not firing as it is, and that's the executive center of your brain. So it's just kind of like you're on autopilot. And if you're on autopilot, naturally doing these things that don't even make you happy, Joe Dispenza has kind of laid it out that people become addicted to a life that they don't even like. And they don't realize they have the power to kind of change and move that mindset. And if you are in that, man, I can give you 3 to 4 tips right off the bat that on a daily basis, man, this could really help you just reframe where you're looking and really get more pleasure out of how you're living on day to day without changing any really major part of your life outside of just your mindset.
That's that's excellent. Yeah,
Thank you.
I It's interesting because I always tell my kid, I'm just going to say quickly. So, I
Sure.
love
Yeah.
the owner of our business. He's a great leader, and he does say, you'll walk in the morning. He always says good morning to everybody. It's very family oriented, very beautiful. And he said, today is going to be a good day. Right. And then,
Yeah.
yes, it's going to be a good day. And then that just like fills you up. Okay. So sometimes it's not the greatest day, even after we say that.
No, yeah.
But you
hmm
always remember that comment. It's going to be a great day. So even when you're going through a hard time, no, we're going to make this a great day. Right. So,
Yeah. And it's
and
great to find that. It's a big part of it. Sorry to interrupt you.
no,
But this was a point I meant to get in there before is the way our brain works. And a lot of people I don't think know this, I didn't know it, is our brain is going to filter what you want it to see. And if you say this is going to be great, your brain is actively, it's the RAS, your reticular activating system. It's actively going to look for things that are you're talking about. So a good example is just to say, and this is why I lean toward the positive, but just think about this naturally. Have you ever bought a new car or leased a car and you really never saw that vehicle on the road before, but you liked it at the dealership? You get it. And then you're driving it and you see it everywhere on the parkways, on the turnpikes, everywhere you go, it's everywhere. It's your RAS, your reticular activating system. Is you hadn't seen that before, now you do, and you know what it looks. Brain is looking for it. So we do that as humans a lot on the negative side. Is we're reinforcing a lot of these negative behaviors. Tomorrow's going to be so hard. I'm going to be so tired. I'm not getting any sleep, and all those constant negative kind of running thoughts. Or a lot of people I've seen, they say it out loud that they're saying, I'm a self-recovering. I say, tired person that I used to always say, it was part of my narrative. I was saying it all the time. I'm so tired. Oh, it's only going to be 6 hours tonight. I'm going to be awful tomorrow. And literally, I was priming my brain for it to feel that. And I've switched just the basic effort of that theta state, which I talked about earlier, saying when I get up and it's in my alarm, I don't pick up my phone right away. I just hit my alarm, but it says in case I do pick up my phone, you're going to have so much energy today. I say in my affirmations and when I meditate before I go to sleep, how much energy is going to be me today, how everything's going my direction, everything I want to do is going to get accomplished. And it just puts your brain into, okay, if problems do get thrown at you, life gets hard, things are going to like throw you curveballs. So I can't say I live this happy rainbow, a great life of everything's going great for me. Things still come my way and curveballs come in, but you're putting yourself in your brain in a position where you can fix those problems instead of become paralyzed of the fear of the problem and not really jump into a house. And when we get into that, it's such a game changer of being reactive of what you're asked to do, or when that curveball comes to you, you're ready to attack it and you're really in the frame of mind of you're almost looking for it or expect an extent.
absolutely. Speaking of positives, so it's funny. My kids, they're sitting there, and it's a tough time. I mean, my children are in their 30s, all three of them now, as of this year. That's a weird thought.
Okay.
But their generation is tough. I mean, housing prices went through the roof, and yet salaries are not really near the extent of the differences. And then, of course, job satisfaction. And I've been very lucky. I've had some absolutely great jobs, but I told them, I said, but at 59, I got the best one ever. 59. So never give up. Like
Yeah.
it, it's there's always something there if you believe that there's going to be something there. In my life, I believe for some strange reason, I've had my ups and downs. Trust me, it hasn't been all, rainbows, but everything that's in gone on in my life, there's always been a positive outcome. And so
Yep.
it's that I focus on is the positive outcome and not those little pockets of really, some of them have been pretty tough roads,
Yeah.
but getting
Yep.
back up again and then saying, hey, look, that took you to here, this took you to there, that took you to here. So I think
Mhm.
you're talking about mindset. It's very important for young people. And I know you work with young people, but it is a very difficult thing for them struggling through, like I said, job satisfaction, finances. Um,
Yeah.
it's been, it's not that every generation hasn't gone through that, but I think this one, particularly with COVID and all of that other thing, and the prices of going up through the roof,
Mhm.
I think they truly are affected more than a lot of the generations previous, um, except for maybe the depression area. Like that was bad. But seriously.
Well, I think it's a very comparable is that you can kind of make direct relations. I mean, there there's always going to be plus or minuses. It's not a clear black and white of depression was harder and this or this is harder. But we also what the depression era didn't have is our news that we get now, whether it's social media or if you get your news, however you get and consume your news. There was an article, and I stay away from politics and onto that end of it. It's I know everyone has their beliefs, and I'm big on believe on what works for you. But yeah, it got into this. I think it was the New York Times, but I could be wrong on that. But they essentially that what we see in one newspaper today is the equivalent of what like 10 months of news in 1920. So
Wow.
we're in information overload. We're just swamped with all these things. And where I make sense, especially on the mental side, we have it harder, or your kids have it harder than what many other got to experience, because now with social media being so prevalent, that it's almost an unrealistic expectation of what life is, what success is. I mean, it's I always tell people I'm like very rarely see on social media that someone's admitting a mistake or taking accountability for something they did going through that. It's just their highlight reel. So it's like anything. You could cherry pick the best moments of his life and it looks really great. But we all deal with and I love what you're doing and the fact that you said been through these downs, but you found what happened. And I think it's a big life shift of when people in I kind of call this scorekeeping is try not to scorekeep. Don't point fingers at people, don't blame, don't like get into that because when you get into that, you're very into this cynical mindset of, well, like this is what's deserved to me or what's going to happen. And you get into this mindset of life happens to you. And that's happening to me, and that's not fair, and pointing the finger. Whereas when you start realizing that life happens for you, we're all going to have struggles. We're all going to have problems and issues that we go through, but it's how do we get through it? How do we rise above? And the you've been through that you've gone through, and that you're putting this, it's not easy to talk about any type of body issues or anything that you go through, especially when it's to the extent of bulimia.
Mhm.
And you're able to talk about it. You're letting people feel seen, where in this social media world where they think they can't think, they have to be all this and they may be suffering with the same thing. And this type of conversation and being able to put this out there, you're helping people feel less alone. So thank you for what you're doing. It's really amazing when people step up and talk about these things because someone else in the world, even if it's only one person, is dealing with this. It's 100% fact that someone's going to have the same type of issue. And I always say, if you can help one person, you're doing something right. Is that it just being able to talk about these things and get them out in the front. It starts a conversation that many people are uncomfortable having, and a lot of people don't think they can talk about. We still have parts of our society where health is just no. You just gotta tough it out. That's no big deal. That's how I grew up. And I realized, man, talking about it has really like unlocked me to an extent that I can really get into what's happening. I've had so many people reach out that they've been through the exact same things. Friends of mine that I've known forever, and we never talked about this realm. Tell you how many friends have told me I also have ADHD, and I've never told. Like, I don't talk about it, and they're like, it's awesome that they can now, and we like have open conversations of, hey, I reacted to this. Do you react like this? And they're like, absolutely, or it's somewhat different, but it's just so cool. Of like our brains are kind. We to some extent we have a same pattern that we're together that when you suffer from that same thing it won't be exact but it's a kind of find those common interests and it's like okay when I'm at my worst with that and I'm hyperactive thinking it's like paralyzing it's so hard and it's I felt because I was always told just tough it out there's nothing wrong with you I really believe that it's coming from my parents why wouldn't I believe that and it came out that oh no there was something that was going on and it helped validate that when you have something that you know when something's wrong and going on and it have the people who love you most and it's like it's no big deal or it doesn't mean anything you think okay maybe something's off of me or I don't understand it right it creates a lot of doubt and this negative shame almost towards of is like no one wants to be labeled as that they have mentally and when your own parents are like, no, you're fine. You don't know what you're talking about. It kind of reinforces that feeling of, okay, I don't even feel comfortable now talking about this situation. So being able to talk about it is a big thing. Sorry, I rambled on for a bit
No,
there,
that's
but
okay. It's funny
just really
because
appreciate what you.
My parents, they were in denial, I think, of even me needing help. It was just like, get over it. Like, this is stupid. Like, you just
Yeah.
quit. Just stop. Don't do this anymore. We're
Mhm.
gonna kick you out if you don't stop. Like, it's like um,
Yeah.
a misunderstanding of that. But my mother, it's funny enough, and she's 90 now, um, but we do talk about it. I told her I have a podcast about it.
Mm.
And she's shown some interest, and she actually told me that in all that I've spoken to her about, that her sister, her older sister, that was 8 years older than her, or six, sorry, whatever,
Mhm.
she had bulimia. But back then,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have, like, really, Karen Carpenter's the one that came, unfortunately, from her death, but that really made people aware of eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia. And unfortunately, it took a death for that to happen. But that was in the 1980s. Prior to that, there obviously was, like, because
Mhm.
my aunt had it. Um,
Yep.
there were people who had bulimia, but nothing was talked about. So it's good to speak to it. I even have, interestingly enough, to talk about it. So mindset, talking about it and getting it out is important. Um, I had one lady on my one podcast that we used to do with a friend of mine, and she admitted that she was bulimic, but she didn't want, but when she was younger, but never talked about it because she was still, even if she was recovered, she thought people would look at her a different way if she actually spoke about it. Well, that turned
Yeah.
around. She was on my podcast for Bleep Bulimia. She spoke about it and she said, "Thank you." She says, "I feel free." Like, there's that, what you're talking about, shame, which is interesting because my previous guest talks about shame and how we carry it, and it's not healthy.
No, it's literally it's shame and humiliation are two of the lowest ranking range of emotions of it's the worst that you can feel about yourself. And it's a society now with scammers and things like that where people prey on that and they really push it. And for the longest time, I can't, this is, I don't have studies on, but it's just my opinion. So I love talking about this end of it because around our, like, we've got a good age range between your kids to me to you that we're in like this pocket of I think we all can kind of see, and I'm sure you probably had this type of reaction, and I know I'm going to when I become a parent. I was guilted by my parents. Everything to get me to do something was done by a guilt trip of, do you want to do this? And I would say no. Oh, it would be so much harder if you're not. And it's like that became a thing. And I thought that that was just kind of me and the way my parents raised me, and it's almost like generational. Anyone I talk to is like, "Yeah, my parent like when I label them, what is the?" And I'm like, and when I make people notice it and like put it out there, they're just like, "Oh my God, my parents do that too." They're like that. Literally, she called and I said no to something, and this is exactly how it plays out. And I think we're a generation where we're trying to like not do that because we how that felt, and by reaction, that's just how we grow in culture of okay, I didn't like how that was. I'm going to do it differently. And so I think that there's going to be a softness to this next generation through that is going to be really beautiful because they understand the breadth of these bad things. They've seen it, whether it's them or it's someone who they knew, or it's just so much more present. So the good thing about all this information is this is a way that we can really kind of take some of the power back and keep talking about it because the more we talk about this, it's you're not going to hear about those suicides that we knew must have happened or that happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s from bulimia. But until that happened, as you mentioned, that's when it kind of became a main story. With podcasts like this, we can talk about these all the time that anyone could put like think about that. Imagine when you were growing up and you were dealing with this. If you could have just searched for something and you have podcast on podcast that talks about it, it would just make you feel immediately less alone. And I think that we've got this isolation problem, especially since COVID, that everything could shut down at once and you're just stuck behind a screen. So how do we think that we kind of work on more connection and in-person type of connection? Because we're better as humans when we connect and we can get all be able to essentially get our feelings out. And doing this is such a cool platform that even though it is remote, it's making such a difference. And I feel the connection just based off how much you're giving out on this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I do have a really uh, big question here. So I was reading through
Sure.
your bio, and then you were talking about the perfect day exercise. Was that what you were speaking to about the more 10 minutes in the night, or is there something more to this?
Yeah, yeah. So there a little bit more to that. The perfect day is something I start using when if someone's in a. So I was dealing with musicians, and if it's writer's block, and what I found is that's a block for. We all have our own version of writer's block, where you feel creative, you don't feel like when you're at work and you don't feel that juice that you want to go to your job and you'll feel fulfilled at what you're doing and kind of to that. And what I do within the perfect day exercise is so a lot of the musicians I was working with, it was people who had prior success, had some type of issue, and they haven't been able to fix that issue. And they're just not, they're a shell of what they used to be. And how do we get? So, what I've kind of figured out is let's jump into and find times of when they were successful. They obviously, so let's start with that. What were they doing on an everyday basis happening? And the whole idea is, and I use this as an example. If you ever heard a song from high school that comes on the radio today, part of you almost feels like you're living there again, like you're in high school. It's the weirdest thing, but like your heart feels alive, or it starts pumping, and you're going, and you just almost feel like, man, like if you went to high school with like one of your best friends, it's like your best friend's right there with you. You have that same type visceral feeling.
Yeah.
So this is something that we can really take advantage of and use, and what we essentially revert is what were you doing when you were successful, and let's bring back as much of that, the music, the food. What were you doing? Like, what were your routines? What were your hobbies? What were you doing in your spare time? What kind of work were you doing? And let's try to recreate as much of that as possible. Success when you were feeling like that, and maybe that could get the brain going. And what would it be able to do and beautifully in a lot of cases is these people went through tremendous trauma or breakups, whatever it was. They were able to write the most beautiful, closure filled pieces of music because they were able to get back into that happy zone and look at it in a better place, look at this and be like, this isn't my entire life. It doesn't have to be like this. I can go back to what I used to do. It's a very common thread of when you see what you're doing now, when you're in a negative mindset, think about when you were your happiest. What were you doing? Who were you talking to? Who was around you? And who made you feel alive? And it becomes, you start realizing, oh, okay, when I'm around this person, I don't have that feeling. Like it's kind of like I don't feel great about myself if I'm around this person. Our bodies tells our stomachs, our hearts, our brains are so sophisticated and smart to the point of we've been around thousands of years and we don't exactly know where consciousness comes from yet. And it's like, so it's really this beautiful thing that we possess. And I think we take for granted, don't take advantage of enough. And I mean, I can own that about myself. I did it for years, and now that I'm doing this, I'm I joke that I feel like I've been able to manipulate time because I used to always go. I would wait for the weekend. I would live for the weekend or my vacation. I had my time off, and man, that week or 10 days of vacation would be over and it felt like in like 3 days, even though I was there for 10 to 14 days. It felt like I was 2 to 3 and I didn't get a full week off. And I just like, it was just, that was kind of like, I was still burnt out and I didn't have that kind of flow. But when I started finding the joy in the little things that I was going through, that maybe my head was buried in my phone, or I wasn't paying attention, I was listening to music, I was doing all the things just to kind of disconnect. And now that I've started looking, how do I reconnect and notice these things? You start picking up on all the beautiful little things that are always right in front of you, the great moments. And part of that comes with age as well. But I really think if we can lean into when are we our happiest, and that can be, you can get happier and get even better of a life, but you always had at least some type of good at some point and something you're grateful for. So yeah, a great trick also that I can throw in is the gratitude is the same part of the brain that processes gratitude is the same part of the brain that processes the nasty emotions, anger, sadness, depression, frustration, fear, all those.
Oh,
And that part of the brain can only really process those emotions at a time. So if you start feeling that overwhelm or the anxiety kick in or any of those things, and this is the big thing is be looking for it, is once you feel that your stomach feeling that not kind of like you just almost have to like stop and breathe for a second. As soon as you feel that, try to again how grateful you are. Like what's something you're grateful for, whether it's your children, your parents, whatever it is for whoever. What are something you can be truly grateful for? And for me, I always go back to, even though our family kind of got torpedoed, man, my mom was almost like a superhero of all she was able to do and still give us such a quality. And I think back of, we didn't really get much present wise, or like what you're talking, like I never got much in value. My mom didn't have much to give. And the love that was there. And I realized of how much being present, someone giving you their time and being fully with you is such a gift. And so I was able to kind of, just through meditation and ruminating, going back through stuff I was grateful for. I was thinking of Christmas Eves with my mom. I was like, I remember that was just, when I think happy, it just is one of those moments with my brother, my sister. I'm like, I remember how excited I was to get to the stockings and to the tree and all that stuff. And like just that pure joy as a kid. And it's, how do we tap back into that and bottle into it? And we can get there, but it's realizing, it's like going through, and it took me walking through and almost revisualizing how that all was and how much I loved it, that I just kind of, I kept doing it, I'm just like, man, my mom was always just there and just cared and just was like, wanted me to be happy and do everything that was great for me. And like, she just lived for me and my brother and my sister. So one of those things that she's not with us anymore, and going back through, I felt her so present in my life and able to find something that really helped me get out of a negative situation just by experiences that she gave me growing up.
That's really interesting. It's funny too, because I think people like that, it's just like I have a nephew who passed away at 23 of cancer. Yeah, I
Mhm.
still feel his presence. We
Yeah.
were so close. He was a techie whiz, so we'd be up till God knows what time, chatting on the phone or online or whatever. Um, so I miss that part because I can't call up the, hey, Ross, how can I do this? And he was like
Yeah.
my my coach on that front. Um,
Mhm.
but
I'm
it's
so sorry for your
what an
loss.
impact he made on his cousins. Like my youngest son ended up getting a tattoo that was a symbol of my nephew, his birth date and
Mm.
past date, and they designed it. My niece, his sister, has it too, and so it's become the same. So Ross was like the saint, like a saint. Honest to goodness, he was the kindest
Mm.
person I've ever met in my life. But people like that, I think, really seriously, talking about grateful, they never leave you.
Wow. Yeah.
They never leave you. Like I
Mhm.
still talk to him. I mean, he's
Yeah.
still there for me. And I believe
Uh,
too that a lot of and it's just my belief, but I believe
mhm.
a lot of the good that's happened in my life in the last few years, I think he's just like my guardian angel saying, this is where you belong. I'm taking you here. This might not have been a good experience, but guess what? I'm taking you through a journey to get you to where you need to be. And I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like I am where I need to be. I'm living with my mom. I was with my dad for a year and a half before he
Hmm.
passed. But the consequences, the results of what happened that were not good is what brought me to the good, right? So you
Yeah. Yeah.
gratefulness, that's how I feel. Is but you got kicked out of your apartment, but no, it was perfect.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It ended up being
Yeah.
for the better, right?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And I mean, what part of got me into this journey of where I got to working in the psych field and kind of learning about all this stuff was that my mom passed away 11 years ago. And I handled it for the first five, I was 29 when she passed. And for the first 3 to 4 years, I I will say I handled it as badly as anybody can. I saw it. I was there. Like I saw her body. I knew she was not with us, and I almost acted as if she was like on vacation. Like I would see her again, and that's how it was my way of getting over the grief quicker. And anytime you have trauma or grief like that, you have to feel it. And it's going to be different for, I know people will ask me, how long am I going to feel like this? And I'd say it's a cop out answer, but it's different for every person. You need to feel to a certain extent, but we learn through these things. And I think you kind of experienced an extent too, is so I forced it for the longest time. And that's why I say I did things wrong with my mom, is that I was so like bitter of why her. She was, I mean, one of the best of us. And I'm like, I know many people who do A, B, and C. And again, that gets into that finger pointing. And was happening to me. And then I went back to of the blessing of where it is, and like you said, of her leaving us. I say all the time, I can't back this. I don't know if there is any metric or any type of study or test whatever that could help figure this out. But I've had the most wild experiences is writing music that I had a group that I write with. We were finishing a song. This was a couple of years back. But I just really started having meditating and really like kind of focusing on those gratitude practices and trying to relive them in that perfect day exercise. So I did all of these things and it really worked incredibly for me. But I've going through and we couldn't finish this part of a song and it was frustrating. It was just the end of a phrase and it was just stuck. So we said, we're going to figure it out. And my mom was a performer as well, but I sang more on the pop rock music side. Mom was a theater performer, old school opera singer. Like everything was the heavy vibrato and all that. So we're working on this song that's R&B, hip hop, musical theater, anything a vibrato should be in. But that night when I go to sleep, we couldn't figure that out. There was four of us in that room, and I meditate right before sleep, and my mom in that voice, I hear that internally. I hear that exact how to finish that phrase, and I just had that feeling in the pit of my stomach and chills of like she was right there with me. Like and I just had multiple experiences like that, and I was like I quantify it scientifically, but I can tell you I feel exactly like I used to feel when she was here. And when you've missed that, when someone leaves, haven't been around for years, you can't really explain it. But it's something that I tell people if you have lost someone, this is a way to find it because when you do, they come back to you in so many ways. You see their kindness in other people. You see the most beautiful things out of it.
You really do. I'm teary-eyed right now. And you
Thanks.
do. You see it
Thank
in
you.
other people. Funny enough, my dad was an opera singer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, bass baritone. He was beautiful. Asked to go professional, but decided that he declined. He became an engineer instead because he wanted, a family, and it's a lot more,
Gotcha.
as for the financial side of things. But he kept doing operettas his whole life. So I grew up watching him on stage, which was really beautiful. So that's very
That's
interesting. That
amazing.
in common too. That yes. This has been absolutely terrific. I really thank you. Love your energy. It's just like
Thank
it's
you.
transferable. Honest to goodness, I love people with energy. So now, David, you're going to let people know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, the best way to reach me is another angle consult at gmail.com. It's another angle consulting without the ing on it. David McKee, DAVID 84 at Instagram. And anyone who's looking to potentially get into this mindset stuff, we have packages that start from one session up to however many you want to do. We do one at a time with no pressure so that no one feels like they're locked into any type of contract. This is something that you got to feel positive about it. So if you're not really getting much out of it. So feel free to reach out if you've been going through something, and we love to get the conversation started and figure out how we can make you your best version.
I love it. Again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we will definitely be in touch.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.